Enjoy your achievements as well as your plans. Keep interested in your own career, however humble.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to our third and final installment of Pro Sessions, a collaboration between the Pacific Northwest and San Francisco chapters of the Recording Academy. I'm Jessica Toon, Executive Director of the Pacific Northwest chapter. And today you'll find the format for this session is just a little bit different than the others. We're going to be turning the floor over to you and inviting you to collaborate and workshop your ideas with other participants and our panelists. So here to tell us more is my friend and colleague, Kristen McFarland, Executive Director of the San Francisco chapter. Hi, Kristen.
Hey, thanks, Jessica. Hello, everyone. Tonight's section is called Get to Work. This is your opportunity to get some feedback on the work you've done following our first two sessions on establishing your business and knowing your worth. To set it up for us, our panelist hosts, Cellista and Andrew, will walk through a feedback discussion with tonight's GRAMMY member guests, Jessie, Cheng, and Maddie Michaels. Following that conversation, we'll split up into some breakout rooms for the opportunity for peer-to-peer sharing and feedback with fellow attendees. Then we'll rejoin back here in the main room for some final Q&A and closing discussion. So once again, thank you in advance to our presenters, Andrew Joslyn and Cellista, who generously provided the foundation for this program, and to our moderator, Sarah Jones, for leading this important conversation for all of us. And of course, also welcome our guests, Jessie and Maddie. We appreciate all of you sharing your time and expertise with all of us. Let's meet them, starting with our series moderator, Sarah Jones. Hey, Sarah.
Hey, Kristen. Hey, Jess. Thanks, everybody.
Hi,
and welcome to our third and final session of Pro Sessions. I'm Sarah Jones. I'm a Bay Area-based music journalist and a longtime board member of the San Francisco chapter. I co-chair our education committee with Cellista, who is the brainchild behind this series. Without ado, I'm going to introduce our great presenters this evening. Cellista is a nomadic performance artist whose politically concerned and revealing stage poems break down the borders between audiences and performers, disciplines, and genres. Her next release, Pariah, is set for fall 2021. Cellista is a San Francisco chapter governor. Andrew Joslyn is a Seattle-based composer, orchestrator, violinist, and award-winning musical polymath. He currently runs his own production studio in Seattle, leads the Passenger String Quartet, and has scored several feature-length films. He writes music for artists, labels, podcasts, music licensing houses, and commercials. He's a Pacific Northwest chapter national trustee and a local advocate for music and the arts on the West Coast. One final thank you to Cellista for creating this series and developing the framework over the past year. And thank you to Andrew for collaborating and sharing his expertise and insights throughout. And thank you all for joining us and being willing to share your work. Whether you're just starting out or have been doing this a while, we welcome all comers to share their ideas, vision, and goals with us today. We're going to kick things off with some brave volunteers this evening. Two of Cellista's GRAMMY Youth student mentees have agreed to kick off this process by being interviewed. Maddie Michaels is a recent Berkeley graduate, a singer-songwriter, and is embarking on her music career. Jessie Cheng is a junior at Boston College and is founding a music marketing firm, Milk and Honey. So before I hand this off to Cellista, just a quick reminder, we'll have a Q&A at the end of the evening. And as we go through the night, drop what you're excited to talk about in the chat. And now I'll hand off to you, Cellista.
Hello, thanks for having me. I'm so excited. And I'm so excited to see my GRAMMY U mentees here today. Hey, Maddie. Hey, Jessie.
Hello.
How's it going?
Good, thank you.
Good, thank you.
I wanted to introduce you to Andrew, my co-presenter.
Hello, hello.
Nice to meet you.
Likewise. Welcome to the circus.
It's a total circus. So Maddie and Jessie and I have been working together. Maddie, I met you in the fall, right?
Yeah, actually, this was last spring 2020. It was just after I graduated. Yes.
Yeah, that's
for the spring mentoring session. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Yes.
And we worked on releasing your single. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So in this February, I just released my debut single, Sanity, about my kind of experiences and challenges I have faced with mental health and anxiety. And just my whole goal for releasing this song is really just to like bring awareness to the issue and of the stigma of mental health, and just be able to write music that people can relate to and kind of helps them through difficult times.
Yeah, I love how you're using music as a platform to like broaden our conversations about different things going on in the world, like mental health issues. It's a really good time to
Definitely.
do that, to be adventurous and brave. And Jessie, we just met and we just started working together. Why don't you introduce yourself and share a little bit about what you're working on?
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Jessie. Super excited to be here tonight. So Frey and I, we've been working this past entire semester. Um, I've always been really like Maddie. Actually, I'm also really passionate about mental health, specifically within the music industry. So I thought about it a lot, and I realized that oftentimes artists are treated oftentimes just as products, and it means like sorry about that. It means that their mental health also isn't taken care of. So my goal with starting Milk and Honey Entertainment, we are a music marketing company, but my goal is to really help support artists by creating, marketing campaigns that really do reflect their musical vision. So yeah, it's really great being a Grammy member and getting to learn a little bit more about the music industry and how I can contribute to it.
Yeah, and it's really exciting to work with both of you because you have really ambitious goals and you've already implemented quite a few of your business plans already. Because I know when I was in college, I was I was so far from that. Like Andrew, we've had so many
We've had a
conversations.
lot of conversations about
Oh
that.
my God. Going to like, because Andrew and I both were classically trained musicians, and now we are classically drained musicians. And and I don't know, did you ever work on any business stuff in conservatory? Because I know I didn't.
No, I mean that was one of the things that really brought me into the music industry and wanting to have an appetite for I'm going to call it like a true education and like a practical education in music. Uh, because like when my 4-year degree, I got ear training, counterpoint, composition, Western appreciation of music. Like I knew everything from Stravinsky to Shostakovich, and I could identify modern composers. But when it came down to brass tacks of how to tour, how to set a rate, what is the licensing industry, what is any of this stuff, I didn't have any of that. So I had, like I spoke about this a little bit in previous sessions, but like, I toured for 10 plus years before I even knew an inkling of what the music industry truly was. So
Yeah.
I think it's great that you guys are, I wish I was a part of Grammy U when I was in college, so I could have learned and not made as many mistakes as I did along the way. So this is,
Yeah.
yeah,
Because
this is
it's like
great.
once you get out there, you're suddenly thrown into it. And if you don't have a plan, it's so hard to figure it all out on your own. And I think we talked a lot about just like we all started out playing, like we roamed from the classical world into by mistake a band maybe, and
Mhm.
then having to like deal with that and figure that out, and then suddenly starting to make money, and then like we talked about in our first session, suddenly calling ourselves professional. All of this was such a struggle, so we're just hoping with Grammy U and with the summit that we can help you not struggle as much as we did.
Yeah. Because I think something else that's really important too is a lot of people view the music industry, both people that are involved in it and people that have no affiliation with it, they see the music industry as this giant black box. They don't understand how the money flows. They see record labels, they hear the stories, the predatory kind of thing. But even people that are in the industry, there's a lot of people that are just like, I don't know. I don't know how to make money. So it's like, I think something that Cellista and I are also really big proponents of and are really passionate about is radical transparency. Like being open about rates, being open about like the struggles and yeah, mental health is a very important part of balancing out your business and keeping sure that you can keep on top of everything. So
Yeah.
yeah.
But definitely just because you are the business, so you matter first, your health matters. And that's why I'm so intrigued by both of you for your business interest and like placing mental health at sort of the forefront. So Maddie, we developed a business plan to some extent. We talked about your mission and your vision.
Yeah.
And just to start this off, just to sort of harken back to our first two sessions, just for our audience as well, do you want to talk about first what is a mission statement and what is a vision?
Yeah, mission statement. When cultivating mine, I feel like really the purpose of like what is your business, or for me, like what it means, what music is for me as a musician. Why am I kind of doing that? Like, what am I releasing music for? And so, um, I guess I can go into like my mission statement for me would just be releasing music that just brings awareness to current real life issues, and that people can this really they can relate to my lyrics that I write, and that it helps them through difficult times, because I know that when I listen to a piece of music, I'm like, wow, that lyric really speaks to me. It's helping me through something right now. And I'm using music as a way of expression. And I feel like that's just like that's my purpose of kind of putting music out, of to help people and bring awareness to current issues that people face.
Yeah, definitely. And Jessie, do you want to just contribute a little bit about your own company? I'll let you talk about what it is and also what your mission statement is.
Yeah, so I think of a mission statement as my why statement, like why I'm even starting Milk and Honey Entertainment. And for Milk and Honey Entertainment, we're a music marketing company, and my goal is to bring like long-term prosperity to artists. And that's by creating very authentic marketing campaigns that truly reflect an artist's authentic and unique musical sound. So my goal is to really work directly with them, and also to like establish sustainable and long-term relationships to really give them the kind of support that they need during their creative journey.
Yeah, and just out of curiosity, we've done quite a bit of work together, but I don't think I've actually asked you what brought you to this point. Why do you have this focus?
Yeah, absolutely. Kind of echoing back what I was saying earlier, I think the music industry is really interesting because not only is the music the product, in a sense, like the artist is also a product. But I think the issue is that the line gets kind of blurry when artists are treated solely as commodities and their mental health is neglected. So I feel like with Milk and Honey Entertainment, I really operate on an artist first basis. So I really want to understand, what does the artist need and how can I support them in their musical journey? And I think for me, something that I think is really important as I work with my clients is I don't want to force them to do anything. I give them my guidance, and whether or not they want to take it, it's up to them. I want them to have full freedom, and to say, like, this is my music and this is kind of the message that I want to reach out, that I want to send to my audience, and I don't want to force or impose anything on them.
Yeah, and I love all of this. And I think a lot of us is really pushing towards a strong vision statement, which these two pair together. And Maddie, since you do have so much experience with this, why don't you explain the vision statement as part of your component of the business plan?
Yeah, for like my vision statement, when cultivating that, it's something that I want to think as, what is my long-term goal, or what do I want to see long-term for myself as a musician in my business. And so, as of course, long-term releasing my music and building up my performance, and I feel for me it's bringing, of course, mental health, but open to all topics, opening to all current topics as this world over changes, long term, is something that I feel that keeping up with those trends, and just as music evolves, musicians are changing, and I
So
feel
you're
that
having
is such a
more,
way.
you're
Yeah.
having more self-aware music making. So
Yes.
music that's reflecting the times, that's
We are
like
moving in the world. Yeah,
And for me-
exactly.
Right. And the vision statement for me is really something that's illuminating where we aspire to be and keeps us on track for our mission, right? So it's
Yeah.
long term. And Jessie, why don't you share your vision?
Yeah, my vision is to develop strong, lasting relationships with my clients. I definitely have a more select client base, and I think, like, as an Asian American woman myself, perhaps I can offer a more niche insight into the music industry and support a lot of artists who might be faith-based artists or minority artists. So yeah, my goal is really to establish like long-term relationships with my clients.
Yeah, I really love that. And for me, what's wonderful about mission statements and vision statements is that it's something within my business plan. As I go through my career, as my business grows, it's something I continually revisit and reassess, right? And so that's something that has become a core part of my process. So I think there's ways of formalizing it where we're putting it into practice with our business plan, we're writing that out, but there's also just internal mission and vision that guides you. And I think, Andrew, we've talked a little bit about how you haven't concretely like written down a mission statement, but you still seem to have like a guiding light, right?
Yeah, I think I've always had I always like to fondly call it like my green light, that kind of guiding distant. I like how you pointed it out, is the vision is you're aspiring for a better world, and I think that's been one of the major things that actually, like, honestly brought me to the Grammy Association in the first place. Is it's a gathering of my my peers where we can all commiserate about how difficult this industry is. But I believe that through advocacy and education, we can together re-envision what this industry should be and how it should present itself to the broader world. And I think that's, to me, it's like, okay, that's a vision. I believe that musicians should be paid fairly. I think the music industry should be a plan A, not a plan B, because I was told my entire life since I was 5 years old that violin was just like a silly pursuit. And somehow I have jerry-rigged my career to get here. So, I think the mission statement, even though I've never written it down, it's been something where I do continually reassess my position. I look at it kind of, maybe I like to structurally reevaluate my business on a quarterly basis. I think maybe that's kind of like a part of my, Virgo rising or whatever is in my chart or whatever. Like, I like having kind of a little bit of a structure in that way. So like, for me, like, for example, one of the things I'm having to look at, it just super pragmatic, practical terms, I need to reevaluate being an LLC to looking at an S Corp versus like how things have gone over 2020. So from a structural standpoint, that's been something really important for me to kind of look at and then be like, well, what does that mean to me emotionally and career-wise and trajectory? I think with, a mission statement, my career as an artist has evolved so much over the years. Originally it was just session playing, one-man orchestra string player, and like I would take whatever gigs I could get. But that has evolved, exponentially in terms of defining myself as an artist and then being able to evolve into the work that I do in film and TV and production. But it's funny because it's like, as artists, one of the hardest things is to develop your own voice. And I think that's intrinsically linked to your mission statement. So Maddie, when you're,
and it's like always going back to it too, to constantly reevaluate and allow yourself to change, to have the hiccups in career, to have the total pivots, to return to things that are old. I mean, it's a much more versatile space than we think, but I think it allows quite a bit of freedom so long as we know who we are and what we are and where we want to be.
Yeah.
And
I think, all I was going to say is I think the mission statement that I've learned in my green light is don't be too precious with yourself.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's been the biggest thing is I've tried and tested a lot of different things, and some things have worked, some things haven't, and I think I've, we present ourselves in a certain light in social media, which you want to try and be very curated. But I think at a certain point you get too precious about that. And I think for myself, especially from a business entity, you have to remain nimble. You have to remain malleable. Jesus, I can't even, excuse me. You have to be able to pivot and move and be able to reassess where you're at. So
it gives you some direction when things are uncertain, just like with this pandemic. I think, I mean, it's been so difficult for all the working musicians I know. I can't think of a harder time. But I still tend to think, given the nature and flexibility of our industry, we are the most resilient industry I can think of, and we will bounce back. That's clear to me. And just to quickly loop in Sarah, you should introduce yourself and what you do, and maybe your own mission statements.
Oh, geez. This is well, I'm a music journalist. I used to be a magazine editor, and now I'm a freelancer because, as probably most of you know, magazines have sort of, shrank a little bit in the past couple of decades. So I do, I like to call it storytelling. It's a good time to be a storyteller because I do a lot of journalistic work, but I also do a lot of marketing work, and which I thought would be soul sucking, and I was really kind of dead set against it. But it turns out it's actually a lot of the same kind of thread goes through. You just find the essence of a story and find something that resonates with your target audience. And so, but it's interesting. I just want to come back for a minute to talk about music school. I was a music business major, and the same thing that you were all saying happened to me too. Like I, studied accounting and marketing and like music theory, but I had zero idea with a degree in music on how money flew through, flew throughout the industry. I had no idea how labels operated. So I would like to know from Maddie and Jessie what you've had to sort of take on your own, and what you've what did you feel was missing from your education, or sort of maybe prepared you to a point, and where do you feel like you've had to sort of be entrepreneurial about?
So I studied marketing and business analytics at Boston College, but there aren't any courses there's no music business major or anything here.
Mhm.
There is a music industry course though, so I took that, and I also took Asian American media last semester. So I do seek ways to still get that music business education, despite the fact that there isn't a formal curriculum here. But I think a lot of it is doing my personal research, and I also talk to the professor who I had for music industry. He knows so much, so I still keep in touch with him. And I feel like the music industry is all based on connections, so it's so important that I maintain those strong connections with people and just stay hungry for more knowledge and just stay curious.
You're wiser than I was.
Me too. How about you, Maddie?
Yeah, so I graduated last May, 2020 from Berkeley, degree in professional music, concentrating in performance and songwriting. And so I did take a music business class, legal aspects in the music industry, about contracts. And then through my major, I also took a lot of entrepreneur classes. And I think for me, really, even though I took one class in contracts, I think I would want to definitely just another whole course on that. I think that's so important. Just the whole agreement in between the artist and another musician and what they're working. What is the agreement with this piece, the ownership, and those kind of percentages. And I feel like that's something I always continually want to practice, and the agreements and contracts and knowing what is important, the terms. And yeah, I think definitely that's something I would want to more another course on, or just something, just more knowledge on that. Yeah.
I
Well,
think a
it's
lot of
interesting.
it.
Oh, I was gonna say interesting to say contracts, because I feel like that's such a specialized thing, and I feel like anybody on the Zoom call can probably say that they're an entrepreneur and have to sort of supplement their expertise with support from people who, especially, maybe it's legal support like that, or maybe it's marketing support. So I'd like to know how you all decide what you can take on yourself and what you can sort of farm out, or where do you feel that you lean on others for support?
I think I constantly need people. I can't do anything by myself, so I think a lot of it is just taking initiative to ask questions. So I didn't even know about Grammy U until this year, because there was an author who published a book about the music industry. So I reached out to him, and he was like, "Hey, I think you could learn more by becoming a Grammy U member." So I think by actively seeking out those opportunities to see how I can expand my own knowledge is something that I've had to constantly do, because yeah,
Mhm.
I feel like it's very difficult to find people who are interested in the music industry. There are a lot of people who love music, but the business is different.
Yeah.
So definitely being proactive.
Yeah, and it's weird. I think as we got out in the world, I don't know if it's the same for you, Andrew, but I'm finding even now, after doing this for years, that I'm still running into professionals who do not have very basic business skills. So something as simple as contracting, which it is a relatively simple thing. I mean, a lot of it's just adapting existing contracts and making them work for you. And I think a lot of it's also the experience of doing the contracting and getting your feet wet. But I don't know if your relationship to established artists has been kind of similar to mine, where you're like, there's some gaps.
Yeah, I mean, it is across the gamut. I've found some artists that are just one, like a workhorse of information, and they run their own music festival, they tour, they do everything on their own. They're completely self-managed, and hats off to them. They're absolutely amazing. But the one thing that I've seen in those kind of situations is they know when to find the professionals and how to divvy up the work and have a close team that really kind of helps keep the ball rolling. But yeah, there is professional musicians now that don't get it. They don't understand how the money flows. They don't understand contracts. They feel that it's just either it's below them, it's not worth their time, or it's just, well, it's just too much. It's too much busy work. I just want to get to playing and recording and just having fun. And which is, I don't want to knock that, because there's plenty of really beautiful artists that I know that I've worked with that's their wheelhouse and it feels really good. But when we talked about in session 1, the minute you take money, you're a business. And I think you have just a better chance at longevity and sustainability if you really look at it long term. I think the hedonistic approach of just being in the moment and creating and everything, I think is really important, and you need to leave room for that. But I think you need to have some level of structure and accountability. And I think, unfortunately, if you're in the industry long enough, you see flashes in the pan. You see people that are really, really, really in the moment and super relevant, and then they disappear. You see that across the board from, producers and people behind the scenes as session musicians and whatnot. But you see that as with big stars too. We all know that. But I think, if you prepare and you give yourself the structure, I think you have a better chance of actually having a real long-term life career in this industry.
Just tying into what you just said, there's a question in the chat about a follow-up to Kristen's question, and then after this question, we'll go into the breakout rooms. So this might be a good way to sort of transition. Perseverance can be key to success. Believe in yourself and what you do, but how often do you evaluate to know you should still keep going forward, and when do you know when to pivot?
Mine feels like it's kind of tied to my accounting, actually. So I do monthly accounting. There's that, but just it kind of, that in itself gives me some kind of a guide. I think that lets me evaluate how things are going and if I'm making the right choices. Am I being picky enough? Am I taking on too much work? Like, I think those numbers are actually offer quite a reflection of how I'm doing, even from mental health stance, to be honest. And it's something that I realized recently, that those hard numbers actually, they help me remove myself from the emotional aspect of creating, of how hard it is to be a musician in this industry. And it just gives me honest feedback. So for me, that's how I kind of evaluate. And that's also when I go to revisit my mission statement and reassess everything that's going on in my vision.
I think it's been a combination of two things for me. I think, yeah, absolutely using metrics to kind of evaluate how I'm doing, how well I'm doing, and if what I'm doing is actually working. But I've also, I think tying in the emotional aspect, being really, really, really aware of burnout. Because for example, for a while, I was really grinding at production music. And in production music, you're doing pitches all the time. You're at the kind of the the whim of music supervisors and music licensing houses, where they'll pitch you stuff and you have to turn around stuff really fast. And then a lot of the work, you get a kill fee of $300 and that's it. If it gets accepted, that's great. But you can get burnt out really fast and you don't really have much control over your own schedule. So that was one thing that I realized, where I was like, well, emotionally, from a burnout side, that's really, I need to be very aware that I'm just raw creating, and I need to make sure that I want to feel better about the art that I'm creating, and it not just being like, Jessie, like you were saying, I felt like a commodity, and that was really hard to kind of keep track. And so I pivoted and I made sure that I got back to co-writing a lot with artists, because I felt in that moment we were creating art together that I knew was actually going to make it somewhere and be in market and actually be performed, as opposed to, well, here's just a bunch of stuff that maybe might eventually get licensed or it might not. So it was more of a self-correctional balancing act. But I think that's something that's been really important for me in terms of perseverance. So yeah,
it's really hard too. I mean, sometimes, I had an experience just before the pandemic, and I got to play the Warfield. I was backing an electronic musician named Troy Boy, and I was incredibly overworked. And it should have been a moment when I walked on stage when I should have been so excited, right? It's such a dream. And I was so tired and burned out. I remember walking on stage and you just see thousands of people. And I remember thinking, I just want to be home. And so I was just working myself so hard. I think one, it's not a metric, but just something that is indicative of me pushing too hard, which I think working musicians tend to do. It's just getting run down and sick, like Andrew's talking about. But we talked about the last session that I used to almost get excited when I would get a legitimate cold or flu and I had to take time off because it offered a day of rest. And for me, you know, with the pandemic and its onset and going through this year, in a way, it's provided some space for me to evaluate that past. And I've realized that I don't want to work like that again because I'm not happy. And I don't know if I'm creating anything meaningful when I'm working through that lens. And I would really like, coming out of the pandemic, and it's kind of my wish for the Bay Area, for all working musicians, to just take more time and to regard themselves as precious, as something valuable and meaningful to their business. And I think that's sort of the hope of this entire summit, is that you're a part of this business, you are the business, and how you feel is the best metric of how the business is doing.
All right, well, thanks everybody. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for coming to all of these sessions. Everyone who has been in attendance today will receive the handouts from sessions 1 and 2, and videos will be online soon. So stay tuned, and we'll see you next time. And thanks in particular to our brave Grammy U members for letting us put them on the spot today, and for everyone else we kind of threw questions at. Can't wait to hear you guys.
Thank you, Sarah, and thank you to Lisa and Andrew. You guys are fantastic. This is a great session. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks all so much.
David,
Glad you could be here.
People is going out, shadiness going down. They raise neighborhoods without making a sound. Cracks open the ground.